Our guest is Ashley Gramza. Ashley, would you tell us what your title is and what you do and where you work?
Yeah, sure. I work at the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, and my title is Conservation Social Scientist. And I work in the research division. We're the newest division at the agency, and we're also the smallest division. So it consists of me, a research biologist. We have an admin person, our boss, and then the wildlife veterinarian and the wildlife health biologist. Actually, the wildlife health biologist lives in Russellville and works in the Russellville office. She focuses on chronic wasting disease stuff. Um, do you want me to talk about what I do now, or
Yeah. So yeah, tell us the different kind of stuff you do day in and day out, different projects
yeah?
you're involved in, and all that.
Yeah, so I guess when people ask me what I do on the streets, I tell people that I help the Game and Fish Commission understand how Arkansans think and feel about wildlife, and I help them use this information to make better fish and wildlife management decisions, and help people connect to fish and wildlife resources through hunting, fishing, and other wildlife-related recreation, such as wildlife watching or hiking. So what that actually means is I conduct social science research. So some of my big projects right now, really understanding how waterfowl hunters, how what experiences they have at our wildlife management area, how crowded they feel. And another big project I have is working with rice farmers and throughout Arkansas, looking at what motivates them to keep fields flooded for ducks and geese over the winter, and how we can work with farmers to help them keep those fields flooded and have them allow hunters to use their property so that we can lease their lands and provide public hunting opportunities on private rice fields. Those are some of my big projects, and my background really understanding human behavior. I've done a lot of work with cat owner behavior, especially people that let their cats outside because cats can eat a lot of wildlife. And then I also have a lot of experience working with various types of farmers and ranchers to understand what motivates them to make farming and ranching decisions that benefit wildlife, especially wildlife species like grassland birds.
So there's a lot to unpack there. um,
Yeah, a lot of
what
things.
so what's been some of your in the past? What have been some of your things that have been some of your favorite projects and things you've done since you've been here in Arkansas?
Yeah, so
What's a
I would
favorite?
say my like I always well there's two kind of I have two kind of favorite projects. So one of the favorite projects is the rice farmer project. The cool thing about the rice farmer project is that it was a really small program when I started, and we didn't have hunting allowed. And through my 3 years at the agency, I helped to write a grant to expand the program, actually expand it threefold, not three, yeah, threefold, and allow public hunting. And so that project's been so cool because I learned a lot about rice farming. I come from an ag background, so it was really cool to learn about an entirely new system. And also, waterfowl hunting in Arkansas is just totally different. So I learned a lot of new things, and it's just really rewarding to work with farmers and to work with hunters to come up with programs that benefit both the farmers and the hunters. So that's kind of one of my first projects here, and I really love it. And then I forgot to mention we just started an urban wildlife camera project in Central Arkansas, and that is a project that's kind of a relic of some of my past work. And we don't have a lot of urban wildlife research going on, and so I really love this project because it's allowed me to connect in neighborhoods that we don't normally work in, like very urban neighborhoods, and show people what cool wildlife are using the city landscape. So those are kind of my favorite projects. I think there's a question in the box.
Yeah, so it's what's the how do you collect information from hunters while doing the research? What's the means by doing that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So when with the waterfowl hunter surveys, it's actually great because most waterfowl hunters in Arkansas um, get out on our green tree reservoirs and wildlife management areas from known access points. So a lot of times we can actually ask them questions right as they're finishing their hunts. We have iPads in the field and we call those intercept surveys. And so as people are coming out of the field, we're asking them how their hunt went and while it's fresh in their mind. But we also, every couple years, do larger waterfowl hunter surveys where we send people a mail survey after the season's done. And then with these permitted hunts on these private rice fields as part of this rice program, what we've been doing is sending people emails after every weekend permit hunt so that they can answer questions about their hunt after that. So we do it in a variety of ways.
Yeah, so an email, a mail survey, and the Intercept paper and pencil survey, or I guess not paper and pencil, it's through the iPad, but
Yeah.
three of those classic methodologies. And several of the students that are probably watching this are taking research methods are in it now. So we're going to talk about some of those methods soon.
Nice.
Something you mentioned that you talked about, your background. Could you tell us a little bit more about your background and how you ended up where you're at as far as your jobs and education?
Yeah, sure can. So before I do that, though, I see there's another question in the chat box. It's about the program, and I can answer that. So the question is, how do you protect private farmland from being abused and tore up by the hunters that use them? So that's a great question, and one we had to work through for the program when we allowed hunting. And so most of the private rice fields are walk-in-only sites. So people have to actually park at a parking lot and they have to walk in and bring all the materials for their brush blinds, etc., just on foot. Great question. But going back to the other question about my background, so I kind of have a mix of, so very common in the human dimensions of wildlife field. My undergrad degree was in wildlife ecology, so I have a background in kind of wildlife science, and I got that at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. But as I was actually a snake biologist before I went into the social science field, and through working on snake issues, I found out, I was always talking to people and telling people how important snakes were and why it's important not to kill them. And so that really got me interested in understanding human behavior and how people think and how they connect to wildlife through my snake work. And so I did some research and I learned that, I had taken or I'd learned about the field of human dimensions in my wildlife courses, but I didn't know that there were whole departments focused on social science as it's applied to wildlife and natural resources issues. And so Colorado State University actually had a really cool setup where they have a human dimensions of natural resources department and degree program, as well as a really good fish, wildlife, and conservation biology program. So for my graduate degree, I was able to be co-advised, and I got a degree in human dimensions of natural resources while being co-advised in the fish, wildlife, and conservation biology department. And I've always been very interested in kind of integrating both social and biological science information. But as time has gone on, I've worked more and more in the social sciences. And what was really cool about my work at Colorado State University is I was able, through my graduate program, to actually take a lot of social science courses in kind of traditional social science departments. So I was able to take advanced social psychology and take anthropology courses and take sociology and political science courses, which I didn't really get in undergrad. So that was really important to me.
Sure. And then for your professional positions, where is this? What professional positions have you had other than this one?
Oh my gosh, lots. So I wrote them down. Yeah, I've kind of done a variety of different things. So when I first got out of undergrad, I worked as a snake biologist for the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and then I worked as a private lands biologist for the Iowa Department of Natural Resources before going to graduate school. And in graduate school, I worked as a human dimension specialist for the National Park Service Biological Resources Division. That was a cool job where I was looking at human wildlife interactions at different parks. So human bear interactions at Shenandoah National Park and human wild pony interactions at Assateague National Seashore. It was a really cool project. And I got to go to parks all over the country. And I also have done some really unique things, such as help mosquito control companies understand the cultural impacts of the work that they do. So when the Zika virus was really big, Vector Disease Control International worked in the Marshall Islands to help with some of the mosquito control to tamp down the virus. And I was able to go over to the Marshall Islands as a consultant to help that company understand how the cultural background of people could help them with mosquito control. And then my last job before coming to Arkansas, I was the National Bird Conservation Social Science Coordinator, and I was working at Virginia Tech University.
So what? So I know we got a question. We'll get to you in just a second, Fletcher. What brought you to Arkansas? What made you say yes?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So when I was at Virginia Tech and working as the National Bird Conservation Science Coordinator, it was a great job, but I worked at like the 3,000-foot level, and I wasn't really able to work on actual applied management projects in the field. And so I really missed kind of working directly with biologists. And also my job at Virginia Tech was all based on grant money. So I really was looking for a permanent funding source. I was kind of tired of moving, and I really wanted to work closely with managers who were doing things on the ground. And so I thought that a state agency would be a good fit for me, but there aren't a lot of state agencies that actually have social science positions. And so when Arkansas Game and Fish Commission posted this position, I was really intrigued by it. I was a little unsure about Arkansas because I had never been here before, but I spent a good week and learned about Little Rock before I interviewed, and I really fell in love with Arkansas, specifically the Ouachita Mountains. And so I've been here for 3 years, almost 3 years now, and I really love it.
Yeah, absolutely. So a question said a few years ago, the Game and Fish implemented a flood control strategy for the wilderness management area, the bayou area, to restore the health of the trees. Can you tell us a little bit about that, or?
Yeah, so that's a really great question, and that really relates a lot to our wildlife management areas and waterfowl hunting plan. And our waterfowl biologist is working with a tree health specialist at the University of Arkansas at Monticello in the forestry department. So the short answer is we don't know yet, but we're working with a researcher to figure out if our strategies are working. We work with that researcher and with other forestry biologists to implement those strategies with the best possible information that we had at the time, but we're constantly collecting more information to figure out if it's actually working. But that's a great question.
And so we had somebody follow up with that real quick, talking about the duck and goose populations. Are have you what do y'all monitor that, and how do you monitor it, and what are they looking like?
Yeah, so we do monitor every year via aircraft, and that's a good question. And so the the ducks and geese are coming down at different times because of climate change and different weather patterns. So that's for sure happening. The numbers themselves haven't been declining all that much, but the ducks and geese seem to be using different areas. They definitely have been avoiding a lot of the heavily hunted areas. So this year, ducks were coming down much later because there really wasn't a lot of cold weather for a while.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of water.
Um, so with that, you talk about, like, I'm sure you have to do, looking at the anglers and the hunters both. And what do you interact with people that use these lands that are typically hunted or fished with the non-consumptive users at all?
Yeah, so not yet. We don't do as much research with non-consumptive users that we probably should, but we're starting to more. We have a watchable wildlife coordinator in the communications division whose job is to set up water trails and hiking trails on some of our wildlife management areas. And so we're just starting to get to a point where we're starting to do research and talking to those non-consumptive users. And actually, we're partnering with a professor at Virginia Tech, actually my former supervisor, as part of a big nationwide effort to understand more of what bird watchers watch and need so that we can integrate that into some of our non-hunting and angling visitor management plans.
Sure. Well, so, kind of going down a little bit different route is, so tell us about some of the things that you like about what you do day in and day out or long term for your job, like the highlights of how you enjoy it.
Yeah, so the things that I really like is that the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission is really open to new ideas at the directorate level. We have a lot of new people in leadership roles, and they're very open to new ideas. So I have a lot of freedom with what kind of research I can do and who I can partner with, and I can partner with a lot of non-traditional researchers, which is kind of cool. And another cool thing is that my job is different every day, every month, every year. So a typical day in my life is always different and there's nothing typical about it. So I really enjoy that and the diversity of things that I can work on. The things that I don't like so much, as I was kind of talking to you a little bit about beforehand, is that there's a lot of social science needs. People touch every single thing that we do. And so there's a lot of need for social science information, but really only one of me. And so I often have to play the job of coordinator to coordinate with different researchers that are doing work and kind of distilling new research and making it applicable to Arkansas while also doing the research myself. And it's really difficult to kind of be the researcher and be the coordinator at the same time. So I've been working really hard to come up with unique ways to fund more staff to work in the social science program so that I am a staff or that I am a program of maybe two, three, even four people rather than a program of one person.
Yeah, yeah, that can be tough. Um, Kind of going down that route, actually, as far as having the folks that you need. I know there's a lot of different opportunities for students and other people to volunteer and get involved. Could you tell us a little bit about that? If students want to get involved and volunteer with the fishing game?
Yeah, so another really cool thing about Arkansas, which made it attractive to me, the Game and Fish Commission, is we actually don't do a lot of unpaid volunteer positions, but we do have a lot of paid, what we call extra labor positions. So actually, this last year for the wildlife management area hunter intercept surveys, we hired three extra labor technicians to do those surveys, and those are paid positions. I think they're paid between about 12 and $13 an hour. And they were kind of remote positions. Obviously, we had to have those positions drive to the wildlife management areas, but they didn't have to be in the Little Rock office. So there's a lot of opportunities such as that. Um, so wildlife has a lot of extra labor positions. Fisheries is always hiring creel survey technicians, and actually one of our former waterfowl hunter technicians just got a job in the Russellville office doing creel surveys with anglers. Um, I'm assuming that these students probably know what creel surveys are, or maybe not.
Not sure. We haven't. We can, they may not have been exposed to it yet, so I'm not
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't come from a fisheries background, but basically creel surveys are almost intercept surveys with anglers. You can, I mean, but where you're also measuring fish and taking biological data as well from the fish. But so it was a really easy transition for our former technician to go from waterfowl hunters to anglers. But yeah, there's a lot of opportunities. Also, the wildlife veterinarian in my division is usually hires an intern. We've suspended the internship program this year, and also our paid all of our internships are paid as well. So the wildlife health programs usually has an intern. I was thinking of getting an intern this next year to help me with some of the chronic wasting disease survey data. But again, the COVID-19 pandemic, we've suspended the internship program for this year.
Sure. And I know there's a lot of things to overcome related to that too. And so, just because I've got a question, where 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 are y'all's offices throughout? I know you've got nature centers, visitor centers throughout the state. Um, how do you manage, or how do you work with those different folks in those different areas, and how much do you work with those? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's really so we have regions. So our wildlife management division and our fisheries division are separated out into regions, but the regions are not the same. So that's a little bit complicated. So there's an office in every region for both wildlife management and fisheries. And so what I tried to do when I first started was give presentations about social science and what I do and how I can work with different regions right as I started. I had planned this year to actually go to every single regional office to connect with people, but that didn't really happen because of COVID. Um, So I've been just trying to do it remotely and through the leadership of the divisions, but I definitely work with more regions, with some regions more than others, and I probably don't work with regional staff as much as I would like to because there's so many needs at the directorate and the division level in the Little Rock office. But that's something that I've really wanted to work on more as I continue in my position and kind of get my feet underneath me. But there's no real there's it's pretty decentralized. The it's kind of like the National Park Service where yeah, there's like these national level offices, but really every park really manages its own thing, and every region is kind of like its own little kingdom, and they kind of manage their own resources and have a leadership structure, and so it's pretty decentralized. And I've been trying really hard to kind of break down those boundaries and show that I do really want to work on applied projects. And the waterfowl hunter stuff has really helped me connect with um, the Northeast offices in Brinkley and Jonesboro, as well as the Rice program. So I feel like I've probably worked a little more with East and Northeast Arkansas thus far, but trying to branch out.
Yeah, absolutely. So overall, for folks that are looking to get into the similar line of work, we talked about volunteers, but are there any other tips or things that you'd say or recommend for students or young professionals looking to get similar line of work?
Yeah, so I was trying to think about the things that I wish I would have done. I think that a big thing is making yourself different. I feel like there's a lot of people that go through kind of traditional human dimensions program that have backgrounds in social psychology and wildlife. And so I really wish that I would have gotten a degree in a traditional social science field and had more social science training. I feel like I'm a bit narrow in my focus. I have a pretty strong social psychology background, but so do most of the other human dimensions specialists at state agencies. So I'm really, the further I go in my career, the more interested I am in kind of ethnographic analysis and cultural analysis. So I really wish I would have gotten a degree in anthropology, to be completely honest. So I kind of wish I would have done that. But yeah, I think that it's almost for somebody in my position, I think it's almost better now to have a social science degree, but to take wildlife and human dimensions courses.
Yeah,
Because you really do want to be able to connect with the people that you're working with, that you're doing research for. But I kind of wish I would have kind of flip flopped the way that I got my training, to be honest.
yeah. Well, and then as far as a lot of these students get to do a lot of a variety of projects through classes, and they have work experiences that they can choose. As they start looking at those experiences, do you have any things that you'd probably say, hey, get at least a little bit of this or at least a little bit of that?
Yeah, I would say the more opportunities that you have to interact with members of the public, whether that's through um, educational programming or hunter surveys, the more opportunity you have to hone your communication skills and to work with a variety of people, the better. I think that's a skill that's really hard to teach in a classroom. And so I found it really helpful when I was doing all my snake work. I did a lot of education programs that were not part of my job, but just kind of fell into my lap, and it gave me a lot of experience talking to the public and talking to different groups and not feeling um, uncomfortable speaking in public and things of that sort.
That's something that you just hit on something I think is very important. Some of the students have asked before is that public speaking element. I tell them all the time, like that's going to be your life going forward if you're in the parks, recreation, or whatever related fields. So it's something that definitely get used to it at least. We all can improve at all times, but at least get comfortable with it. Uh,
Yeah.
if folks, as far as the folks joining us, if y'all have any other questions before we let Ashley go, feel free to put them in the chat box. Um, Ashley, one of my questions was, what do you do for fun when you're not working on human dimensions projects?
Anything outside, basically. Besides stuff that can really kill me because I'm Midwestern and I'm not like that thrill seeking. But I'm a big trail runner. Trail running is kind of my primary thing, and then I will bike and cross country ski and snowshoe as I can. I mean, I don't do that as much now that I live in Arkansas, and not in a place that has a lot of snow. But yeah, I basically love being outside hiking. I'm actually going backpacking next weekend in the teens, so that'll be a fun
Yeah,
experience. But yeah, I just like being outside. That's my big thing. Being outside and like getting my heart rate up,
yeah.
basically.
So the follow-up question with that, I guess, would be if you weren't working within the wildlife sector, I guess, what would be your dream job if you could choose any career or do anything for a job?
Oh my gosh. That is, I think that it would be really, really fun to be a product tester for like outdoor gear. Just paid to basically backpack and destroy like recreation equipment. I think that'd be really, really fun. But I feel like that's such a niche kind of crazy thing. And I also have fantasies of just being a brewer, like working at a brewery and being like a head brewer and like coming up with like
Yeah,
weird beer concoctions.
yeah. The both of the I think about the product testing. I thought about that too. Like, so I love fishing is like one of the things I love to do the most. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool to just test different rod and reels and lines and hooks and all that? And um, you know, like you said, I'm like I don't know how I'd get that gig, but that'd be so fun. You're doing the work while you're having fun. Uh,
Absolutely.
well, I noticed we don't have any additional questions, so I don't want to keep you too long. I want to say thank you for joining us and thank you for sharing your time this morning. And as I've said on via email, if you need anything from me, please do not hesitate to reach out. I'm more than happy to help out in any capacity. And I'm sure I'll be reaching out to you probably to do more of these in the future.
Yeah, for sure. And if any of the students on this on the in this class have any questions, please share my contact information. They
Okay.
can call, email me, whatever. Hopefully, as more people get vaccinated and we're able to kind of do have more internship and extra labor opportunities, there's a lot of opportunities for experience.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So, folks, if you have any other questions or if you want to connect with Ashley directly, just let me know and I'll share that information. Uh, I'll say thank you again and have a great day and have a good weekend.
Thanks, you
All
too.
right. Thank you, Ashley.
Bye.
Bye.